This is the Rising Tide Startups podcast, where we chat with startup founders from all over the globe to help you escape the cubicle and begin your own startup journey. Make sure you take notes. Every episode of Rising Tide Startups is sponsored by Podbrand Media. Let Podbrand create and host your company branded podcast. Learn more at podbrandmedia.com. This is the Rising Tide Startups podcast, and my name is Kevin Pruitt. We have a very special guest with us today, and as you know, we're focusing in the virtual assistant space for at least the first half of 2024, and I would like to introduce you to Jennifer Scholz. Jennifer, thanks for joining us on Rising Tide.
Kevin, thanks so much for having me. I'm really happy to be here today.
So if you and I met at like a networking event, how would you introduce yourself to me?
I would probably say that I'm a virtual assistant and I help entrepreneurs and small businesses get more done so they can grow their business.
So how in the world does one you didn't wake up and think, hey, this is where I want to land, for a career here. So take us through the journey. Hey, we're going to walk down memory lane backwards here. So we're going to walk back to that time that you're sitting in the cubicle and you're going, I hate my life. I've got to do something different. So what was that light bulb moment that came on, or what were you doing at that time?
So at the time, I started out actually doing transcriptions as sort of a side gig. I got divorced in like 2012, 2013 and said, I need something to supplement my income. I don't want to work retail hours. I don't want to work in a restaurant or do anything like that. What can I do? And I had a very good friend at the time who was he owns a marketing agency, a digital marketing agency. And so he had said, hey, have you ever thought of, doing transcription? Mm-hmm. He also has a couple of podcasts. He had a lot of friends that had podcasts at the time. And they said, we need someone to do, transcribe our podcast. And I thought, perfect. Me and a computer doing it at my own leisure, after work, weekends, no problem. And so that's really how it started. And I did that for a year or two. And then I had some people say, hey, can you also do this? Can you also do this? Could you help me with this? And sure, yes. And I came from, having over 20 years of experience being an admin assistant, an executive assistant, and all the various jobs that I had held. And I liked that work. I didn't always like, say, the toxic work environments and sort of other little people micromanaging and things like
bosses,
that. Yeah. Right. And so really what the game changer for me was when COVID hit. So everybody got sent home to work. And I realized how much nicer I liked working without being in the office environment, kind of without being micromanaged and having somebody looking over my shoulder all the time. I also realized at that point, I had a lot of my side gig clients asking me to take on more things, help me with social media, help me manage my inbox, et cetera, et cetera. Yep. And it became that my side gig was taking up a lot more time. It was all of my evenings after work, all of my weekends. And so my work-life balance wasn't so great. And so my very wise boyfriend said at the time, why aren't you doing this full time? I thought, I don't want to be responsible for, making sure how do I know I'll have enough money every month? How do I know that this is going to be enough full time? I just was really scared to take that leap. And then it's like, I'm basically working for insurance coverage and things like that. And so once I kind of worked that out, he's like, listen, you call your existing clients, you ask them, if I had more time, do you have more work? And so I did that. And every single one of them said, absolutely, yes. And so really, it was just a matter of taking the plunge and just setting my mind to it and doing it. And, it was easy when work said to me, hey, we want to have you start coming back into the office. And where I was like, I don't know that really works for me. So I basically said, I can give you a 2-week notice, or I can give you a 2-month notice. 2 weeks notice is just 2 weeks. 2 months is you hire my replacement. I train them. So I know I'm leaving you in a good place. And then we're all good. And so that's what they ended up doing. They hired someone and I trained my replacement, left them in a very good place, which allowed me to sort of slowly ramp up the switch of things for me. And it all. I never looked back. And in fact, Kevin, I wish I did this 10 years ago.
So you mentioned the early on in that little chat there, you mentioned the elephant in the room, insurance. Insurance is provided through my
Yeah.
employer. I mean, that
Mhm.
seems to be, I mean, you've heard the term golden handcuffs. I mean, a lot of times golden handcuffs are the salary, but
Mhm.
actually I think it's more, it's not the salary you're concerned about. It's the fact, where am I going to get health insurance? I get it for 300 a month, working at my company. It's going to cost me 2,000 a month if I, buy it on the open market or whatever. So how did you figure out what was the answer, and what do you think is an answer for people that want to take this leap?
Well, I mean, I probably took the easy way out, so to speak. My long-term boyfriend and I lived together, and he's like, "Come on, my insurance, come on, my family plan." And I thought, okay, like that was the easiest and most logical for me. But there's other insurance options out there for people to just have single person insurance. So um, I would definitely stress to people, don't let that hold you back.
Hmm. Yeah, that's
Um,
not an insurmountable obstacle.
right, right. And the other thing was just like, do I have, so many, I was guaranteed so many hours a week with
Yep.
a regular paycheck from someone else. So there's kind of
Yep.
getting over that. And yeah,
But I mean, you actually negotiated your ramp. You said I'm going to give myself 2 months to kind of replace my income here. So
yeah,
I do think that was a stroke of genius that says, hey, let call your existing clients to see if they got additional work to do. Because I
yeah,
think most people, they look at their clients, they think, well, they're buying this service from me, so I guess they're at capacity. Now I'm providing what they want, they're buying what they want, they don't need anything else. They'll let me know if they do, but sometimes it's just a matter of just asking the question, you know, and be surprised at the answer. So talk about that
yeah.
that day that you knew you were walking out, or that you were closing the laptop on that, the corporate gig for the last time, and you knew Monday when I open it up, I'm on my own. What was that feeling like?
It was a mix, of course, of absolutely scared to death and
Excited
kind of
terror.
and then also just excited for
Hmm.
new beginnings. Like I felt a big weight off of my back, off my shoulders from just I don't there were certain people that I maybe didn't enjoy working with, and I don't have to work with them anymore.
Hmm.
Like I can work with people that I work well with, that I enjoy working with. Every day is totally different because the things that I do for all my different clients are totally different. And
Hmm.
what I do for one client is completely different than what I do for someone else. And I love that. And I love the people that I work with. I get excited to get to work every day and get started. But I mostly love the flexibility, and I love that I can work from anywhere. I
Yeah.
cannot tell you how much travel I have done in the last couple of years that I never would have been able to do with
Hmm.
my limited number of vacation days and things like that because I can travel and work from there.
Yeah.
So
Give me a
it's
give me
amazing.
Wi-Fi and a laptop, and I can go anywhere, anytime, and get it done. And I think you kind of probably designed your work to be like asynchronous. It says, this is project based. It's not like I have to be on a call at 10 o'clock in the morning, every Tuesday or whatever. So,
Right. Yeah,
you're
I do have a
certainly working at
few
those.
calls like that. We do weekly calls or things like that,
Hmm.
but I just work around that,
Yep.
or we reschedule, or whatever. My clients are amazing. I again wish I did this at least 10 years ago.
Hmm. And another thing, if a coworker you can't fire. You can fire a client that you're not, getting on with, so to speak, and you say,
And I
hey, I can
have
find another one.
once, just once.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And that probably is even freeing, that says, what, I hate the fact that I'm losing that revenue, but they're certainly not worth the hassle,
They weren't.
of
Yeah. And
just
had I
kind of
known
fighting
what a
through that.
hassle, I would have charged more. So I was actually probably losing money by keeping him on. So
Hmm.
yeah.
I did take a look at your website this morning, and
Oh,
just looking at some of the services that you provide. And you hear all the time, the phrase niche down, you know, focus on one thing, do one thing exceptionally well, be the best in the marketplace in that particular area. But it
mhm.
looks like to me that you have, four or five key areas, whether it's copywriting, whether it's being a VA, whether it's being transcription services, and maybe even a couple of other things that I think that I saw in there too. That how do you balance that? Because they're different skill sets and
Hmm.
they're different demands. I mean, you did mention earlier, I like the variety of the day. I mean, of course, that would be a huge benefit of offering kind of different
Hmm.
services. But how do it's a hard transition to go from, I just spent 2 hours doing copy. Now I'm just going to go over here and transcribe something, or actually I'm going to edit a podcast over here, or do podcast notes or something like that. So
Hmm.
how do you kind of bounce from thing to thing well?
It's a great question because it took me a little while to kind of figure out how I wanted to design the business in terms of, am I going to take each day and separate that into different chunks of
Hmm.
time and work on
Time
different
blocking or
client
something.
things?
Yeah.
Or are there certain days? So Mondays are this client, Tuesdays
Hmm.
are this client. And I tried doing both ways, and there are pros and cons to both. The biggest thing I learned is I need to be flexible or have some flexibility, because if a big time sensitive project comes up or something like that, I need to be able to fit that in somehow.
Hmm.
And so I kind of, at the end, like at the end of this week, I will look ahead and see what's coming up for next week, other than my normal things like every morning or so many times a day, I check email inboxes for
Right.
certain clients. And so that's something that needs to be done daily and
Hmm.
multiple times a day. But if there's a big project, I just sort of chunk out time
Hmm.
for those things. And I find that to be fun too. So like I said, at the end of this week, I'm going to take a look at what's coming up for next week. I'm going to start chunking out time of things to do things and work that around maybe other um, appointments or things, phone calls and whatnot that I have. So
Do you find that you can be a jack of all trades but a master of none, type thing? I mean, is there a danger in doing that if you provide too many services? I mean, what have you found, like in from the time you've actually, kind of got out on your own? Are there services that you just stopped providing? You said, actually, it's not even cost effective anymore. I don't like doing them, so I'm going to take that off my website or off my service offerings. So, how have you worked through that? Say, here's the four magic things that I do.
yeah. So I don't think there's really anything that I've stopped offering that I was doing, other than the fact that when I started, I was a transcriptionist. Boom. That
Hmm.
was it. It was transcription.
Yep.
Never even thought of adding anything else until a client said to me, "Hey, could you do this?" And I was like, "Yeah, I can. I've been doing that in my other jobs." Um, but I will say that for copywriting, for example, I wasn't an English major. I haven't had a job where copywriting was the predominant aspect of
Hmm.
that. I can do it fairly well, but if you put me up head to head with a copywriter, you know, it's good. There's no competition there.
Hmm.
So, I've done I like to call it light copywriting or light graphic design. We all have Canva. We can all be graphic artists, right? With
Hmm.
Canva, things like
Yep.
that. But um, and I will, full transparency, tell a client, yeah, I can help you with some copy. I'm not a copywriter, but I can throw some things out to you. We can go back and forth. We can make some edits and you know stuff like that. Um, but yeah, there's nothing that I've really stopped doing or taken off the table. I don't do transcription as much. It's
Hmm.
just not where the money is.
Hmm.
But I do still have some transcription clients. I have podcasters that are clients, and they
Hmm.
see a great deal of benefit with having their podcasts transcribed. So I continue to do that for a few clients.
Have you seen AI kind of cut into the transcription space? I mean, what do you think's coming in the near future with AI?
Yeah, well, I'm very glad you asked that. I used to, when I first started out, listen and type at the
Hmm.
same time, like
Yep.
just organically like that. Um, I do not do that anymore. I use Descript, which is amazing,
Hmm.
but it's not perfect.
Yep.
Quite honestly, there's no replacement for a human.
Right.
Um,
Yep. Certainly not
it
now. Yeah.
will, yes, it will. And I do some extras. So there's very few transcriptions or any of my transcription clients where I'm just transcribing something.
Hmm.
Um, I run it through Descript. I have it spit out the transcription, and I sit there and I go through it and edit as I listen. But I also I'll insert some hyperlinks. So if they're talking about, for example, one of my clients is um, he owns a digital marketing agency. So if I'm doing his podcast, I'll hyperlink to certain apps or
Hmm.
platforms or things that they're talking about, or somebody's website or that kind of stuff. And then I give him a few examples of titles of what he could use for. I'll just
Hmm.
throw a few out. I will do a little bio for the person that
Hmm.
he's
Right.
interviewing. I will do an intro paragraph that he can sort of pick and choose from. I summarize, give a few summary uh, ideas of what's going on in the interview and just stuff like that. So I add some extras that you're
Hmm.
not going to get
Yep.
from a platform like Descript. And
Uh,
Descript is
yeah.
also terrible at um, not always stopping. Like if you have an interview with two people, like if this was
Hmm.
going to be transcribed, they may have what you're saying on my line and stuff
Yeah.
like that. So it's just
Yeah.
little tweaks that you have to make.
Especially if the voices are similar. I think it
Correct.
might.
Yes.
So I do think that the transcriptions and or transcripts I've seen that AI has generated, and even like show notes with podcasts, it still sounds like a machine wrote that.
Yeah.
It just doesn't quite have that human feel. When you're reading it, you're thinking you just took a bunch of words out of Webster's dictionary and threw them into a paragraph. It may be
I definitely
grammatically
agree with you.
correct, but it's certainly, yeah, it doesn't make, yeah, it's not conversational. It's understandable. So we're going to take a quick break for our sponsor here, but when we come back, I want to ask her to really drill down and give us a little bit of idea of like what does an elevator pitch sound like for her company. At Navicus, we know you spend far too much time on administrative tasks. Let us take those off your plate so you can focus on the highest value activities in your business. We have highly trained, highly vetted specialists ready to take on those administrative responsibilities at an affordable and effective rate. Check us out at navicus.com, proud sponsor of Rising Tide Startups podcast. We are back. And Jennifer, thank you again for joining us on Rising Tide. Like I said right before the break, I said we are going to ask her, say, hey, give us your 30-second elevator pitch. If you and I are walking onto an elevator, we're going to go up to the 10th floor. I'm going to be gone forever. Tell me about your services.
Yeah. To precursor that, I kind of a quick aside. I spend so much time working on other people's businesses that I do very little on my own. So like my website is very outdated. I haven't even gotten myself like I was going to use the business name Gal Thursday, right? Because she gets it done faster than Gal Friday, right? Haven't done any of that. I don't even have a .com. Like in my email is just a Gmail, like because I spend all my time working on everyone else's businesses, which is fine. But literally, I would say I help entrepreneurs and small businesses get more done so that they can grow their business. And that's going to look different for everyone because I have some clients that are individuals. So they're running their businesses on a very small scale, but they're not good at like one is a chiropractor. She's great at being a chiropractor, not so great at social media or promoting
Mm-hmm.
herself or that kind
Yeah.
of stuff. So, and that looks different than the kind of stuff that I do for um, the gentleman that's a client that owns his own digital marketing agency. He has a lot of other people working for him that do other things. So I'm more of an executive assistant just to him to kind of keep him organized and do certain stuff. So I love going to networking events and meeting people when they ask me what I do. And I say, I'm a VA, I'm a virtual assistant. And they're like, what? What is that? What do you do? And I'm like,
Let me
it,
tell you.
yeah, let me tell you. And it could look different for everybody. Um, So, yeah, it's really about what do you do? What's bogging you down in your business? I hate checking my emails. I can't keep up with my emails. Great. You need someone to help manage your inbox and organize it in a way that's going to make it more manageable for you to check it.
Mhm.
So I do that for a few people, or just I have another client that's trying to get more visibility for her business. And so we're working on things like getting her more speaking engagements. So I'm putting together a media package for her, and I'm pitching her for speaking engagements and for to be on podcasts. And then I have someone else who has a couple of podcasts, and he just doesn't have time to go through all the people that want to be on his. So I
Hmm.
vet people to be on his, and I
Yeah.
pitch him for speaking engagements. And these are things that people don't really think about other people doing for them.
Hmm. Yeah, and there's a famous book called The E-Myth that talks about, working on your business instead of in it. How do you remove yourself as an employee, of your
Hmm.
own business? And I think a quick way to do that is the utilization of virtual services, using a VA. But when you hear the word VA, like in the business space, the first thing that comes to mind, in I think in so many people's mind, is like the Philippines. It's like the
Yes,
land of virtual assistants, and what maybe the land of cheap virtual assistants. So,
right,
what is the I've been really interested in this because I know there are a lot of US based virtual assistants, and you look at their hourly rate, and it's a substantial difference in the two. So what do you think is the gap, between those, other than the fact that, we just have a higher cost of living here, obviously. But
right.
what are some other reasons that businesses would use a US based virtual assistant versus an internationally based virtual assistant?
I think just a comfort level of knowing generally how people from America, people from the US work ethic. I've never worked with anyone. I've never known anyone that has worked with or is a Philippines-based
Hmm.
virtual assistant. So no shade to them at all. But I do think a lot of it has to do with the cost of living. I think maybe jobs are scarcer there.
Hmm.
Um, I'm not sure, but I think if I were to hire one, I would feel more comfortable hiring someone that's a little more local to me, someone that I feel is, again, has the same maybe work ethic, uh, maybe someone that's in my same time zone, things like
Yeah.
that.
Maybe cultural understanding. I mean,
Exactly. Yeah.
nuances, linguistic nuances,
Right.
stuff like that. Yeah.
Hmm.
That certainly makes sense. And I think that, I think it's a big enough space that everybody can play in this sandbox, and
Yes.
I think that
Yep.
there are different needs and different opportunities for everyone in this space. But the thing that I don't like about the space is it does seem like that sometimes it's a race to the bottom on price. It's like, well, we can get you somebody that'll do it for $6 an hour. We'll do it for $5.50 an hour. And I'm thinking the end product here is that there's some poor person on the end of that chain working for $2 an hour. And I'm
Right.
thinking, let's like the theme of the podcast, a rising tide lifts all boats. So how do we get that? How do we make this space professional? How do we make the services, and people highly vetted, so that it does rise all boats, or raise all
Right.
boats here. But talk about if you started over again tomorrow, what are some lessons that you've learned? What are one or two just really key lessons that you learned that you said, man, I wish I would have known this the first day I started on my own. It would have made my life so much easier. What are one or two key lessons?
I think the biggest lesson and something I still struggle with, and I don't even think this is a struggle that is isolated to the VA realm, but anyone, especially anyone starting their own business, any entrepreneurs or small business owners, is what to charge.
Hmm.
And you suffer from imposter syndrome. And you're like, why would someone hire me? Why would they choose me over someone else? And I'm going to say you got to get over that, even though I'm still working on that myself. Um, the there's also the whole you get what you pay for,
Hmm.
and I think smart people will tell you don't go for the cheapest, maybe don't go for the highest, try somewhere in between.
Hmm.
But I've always worked on, like when I was first starting out just with transcriptions, it was I have something else to offer. I'm not just doing straight transcription. I have these extras that I
Hmm.
offer on top of that you're not going to get from a AI, that you're not going to get from most other people that are doing transcription. I'm doing all these little extras that set me apart from other people. And I kind of saw the writing on the wall when AI was becoming more of a thing, when there were platforms like Descript, for example, that I could use to help me. I had to look down the road and say, something like that could replace me. And so that was an impetus for starting to take on other things and going from a transcriptionist to a VA.
Kind of multi-service, offering.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So make yourself valuable. It's what you offer. So like I said, little extras like that I do for the transcription, or, I had a client, even when I was working for other people, I was always either just an admin assistant or executive assistant. They would say, "Oh, do you know how to do this?" Sure, I do. I didn't know how to do it, but I immediately went and researched and I Googled and I figured it out.
YouTube is amazing.
Yes. What did we do before it? So just being willing to sort of go out of your comfort zone and learn new things, learn new skills.
Let me ask you this question. I'm curious. Do you have aspirations of growing this into kind of like an agency, so to speak, where you have people that are actually working for you? Or are you just pretty content with my lifestyle business here? I'm working when I want to. I'm my own boss. I don't have the worries of worrying about anybody else. How do you project, 5 years down the road?
Yeah, I absolutely do not want to grow it any bigger, which may be surprising to hear, which is kind of similar to how I didn't want to do it in the first place. It was just my side gig. Never wanted to take it full time. I thought, I'm going to get burnt out. I'm going to get tired of this. I could never make a living doing this full time. All of which have not proven true thus far. Lucky for me. But yeah, I just I do have one or two people that I will subcontract some work out. Like if I have an exorbitant amount of stuff, usually it's the transcriptions that I will subcontract out. I use my boyfriend's college daughter, and she does a magnificent job. And it's the perfect thing for her because she can do it in her downtime between classes, in the evenings, weekends, whatever. But I never want to have a full employees under me, and there's pros and cons to that. It's definitely easier than having to do all that. But there's times when I like to go on vacation and not have to worry about that.
Yep.
When I worked for someone else, when I shut down for my week off, I shut down. I never had to check an email. I never had to check on anything until I got back to work a week or whatever later. And that's not quite the case here. I'm still checking. I don't have anyone else in the office that can do that work for me in my absence. So that's probably the only downside that I've noticed. But other than that, I mean, that's not for everyone, but it's for me. It works for me. And I love what I've built thus far and really don't want to get much bigger.
Yeah. I mean, aspirationally, I mean, that's, I think, hey, when you've arrived at that point, you think I've kind of created this work-life balance that I'm very comfortable with. I'm earning the money I want to earn. I'm taking vacations when I want to take vacations. I can sleep in a little bit if I want to sleep in a little bit on a Tuesday and make it up that evening type thing. So, man, good on you. We just want to applaud, what you built here, and it's just a refreshing perspective, just in the whole VA space. Just another idea that we can provide for our listeners on something that they could look toward to escape that 9-to-5 cubicle and some of the office politics that you mentioned earlier. But it's just been a pleasure to chat with you today and just to hear your story, and just thank you for taking time to share that and really just playing your part in helping all boats rise in a rising tide. Jennifer, thanks again. Have a great day.
Thanks, Kevin.
I hope you heard some great takeaways from our guests today. Make sure you reach out to them, and thank you again for playing your part in helping all boats rise in a rising tide.